Patricia had the valve key in her fist when I hit the porch, steam rolling off my shoulders, my newborn crying behind me. "Stop," I said. "She's in the bath." "Policy enforcement," she answered, clipboard tucked like a shield. "3 assessments. You cut water to a house with a 3-week-old?" She rotated the key. Metal scraped stone. The spigot coughed dry. I stepped into the glare, towel clinging, gravel biting my heels. "Turn it back on. File an appeal." "My wife's recovering from preeclampsia. I filed hardship. Not recognized by our board." The baby's cry thinned into a breathless squeal. I felt my jaw lock. "Patricia, this is dangerous. Consequences encourage compliance, Mr. Callan." "Ryan," I said. "Mr. Callan," she repeated, smiling only at the corners. Blinds tilted, phones rose like periscopes. Eddie across the cul-de-sac lifted his, hesitated, then hit record. A breeze pushed heat through the lemon trees. Leaves rattled like tin. "You want the money?" I said. "I'll bring cash after I get her cleaned." "Late fees apply," she said, ticking her pen. "And a reconnection charge." "You tamper with a utility and someone gets hurt," she cut in. "We're private. We set standards." The faucet inside banged, an empty pipe knocking. It felt like a slap. I took a step. The tech in an orange vest shifted behind her. "Don't," Patricia warned. "Touching staff is an incident." Turning off water to a newborn is an incident. Mason jogged up from my driveway, badge clipped inside his flannel, eyes scanning. "What's happening?" "She shut us off," I said. He faced her. "Ma'am, state statute prohibits interfering with essential residential water without due process and safety provisions." She blinked. "This is an internal enforcement action. Water isn't your toy." "Who authorized the shutoff?" "Board vote," she said. "Document?" She tapped her clipboard but didn't show it. Humiliation bloomed. I stood half-dressed on my lawn while my child cried behind a dry pipe, and Patricia cataloged us like a violation. "Turn it back on," Mason said. "Now." "Are you threatening me?" she asked. "I'm informing you," he said, voice level. "Restore service or I call this in as unlawful tampering." Her chin rose. "Call," he called. Eddie's phone caught the dispatch beep, plate glare off the HOA truck, the quiver in Patricia's pen as she wrote nothing. "What would you do if your HOA president weaponized the rules against your crying newborn and did it with a smile? If this were your street, would you fight or fold? Hit subscribe because the next move decides everything. Let me back up and tell you how this started. I'm Ryan Callan, marine engineer turned home contractor, trying to build quiet after years of noise. Silverwood Estates looked like quiet. Beige stucco in rank striped lawns, kids looping the cul-de-sac around a dry stone fountain that hadn't run since we moved in. That fountain was a promise. Order, beauty, water held in balance. Dry, it felt like a dare. Elise loved the lemon trees. I loved the garage that could finally hold my tools. We bought in spring. By summer, the letters began. Trash can visible from the street. Photo attached. Non-approved porch light. Model number underlined. Vehicle overhang. My work truck. Nose an inch past the driveway. I paid the first fine. I argued the second. On the third, I attended a meeting in the rec room and watched Patricia run the board like a courtroom where she was judge, witness, bailiff. She spoke in the plural. We, our standards, our image. But enjoyed the singular power of the gavel. Then Elise's swelling got worse. Bed rest. Monitors chirped at night. I filed a hardship request with medical notes and a payment plan. Their reply came on glossy letterhead. Denied. Eddie knocked once, holding a notice he'd received for improper flag dimensions. His voice stayed low. "She goes after the easy ones first," he said. "People who won't fight." "You?" I asked. He shrugged. "I moved here for quiet." "So did I said. The morning of the shutoff, I replaced a split section under the sink, hands in cold metal, thinking how relief sounds like steady water. I didn't know Patricia had scheduled a different silence. I only knew the sink finally stopped singing, and Elise was breathing easier upstairs. I walked the cul-de-sac to cool my head. The fountain sat in the center, cracked lip, chalked with lime. At the mailbox, another white envelope waited. Return address. Silverwood Estates Community Association. Notice of violation, unapproved exterior fixture. A close-up photo of my porch light stared back, overexposed into a halo. They wanted a specific model from a vendor on their list. I touched the warm brass and pictured Patricia holding the sample book like scripture. Eddie walked up, camera bag slung across his chest. He nodded at the envelope. Another one? Porch light, I said. Didn't know a lumen could offend. He half smiled. They approved new palms for the entry, weekly water truck. But the fountain? Under review. 2 years. You go to meetings? I asked. Sometimes, he said, adjusting his strap. They talk a lot about optics. Optics? Perception of value, he said, as if perception pays bills. A golf cart buzzed the asphalt. Patricia drove, visor sharp as a knife. The tech from earlier sat shotgun, scrolling a tablet. She slowed beside us. Mr. Callan, she said, writing before she stopped. Your vehicle is overdimensional again. It's parked inside, I said. Front tire touches the sidewalk boundary. She pointed, with her pen though she hadn't looked. And I see you've kept the non-compliant light. Still working through your vendor list, I said. Standards protect value. She smiled at Eddie. You're recording today? Just walking, he said. Inside, I spread notices on the kitchen island like maps. Elise came down slowly, hand on the rail. Is she asleep? I asked. For now, she whispered. Did you talk to them? They talked at me. I slid the envelope. Porch light. She traced the letterhead with a finger. They know about the hospital, right? They know. I touched her wrist. The butterfly tape from yesterday's IV still bruised her skin. Ryan, she said, eyes on the sink, promise me we'll have water for her bath tonight. I promise. That afternoon, I drove to the HOA office behind the rec room, air smelling of toner and lemon cleaner. A corkboard held agendas. Behind the counter, an admin blinked at her screen. I'm here about a hardship extension, I said. Forms are online, she replied. I submitted them last week. She scrolled. Denied per board. On what basis? She lifted a laminated page. Bylaws 6.3. Payment obligations are not impacted by personal circumstances. I cited state law, I said. Essential utilities and medical accommodations. She slid the page back. We're a private association. Private doesn't mean above law. Her eyes flicked toward the closed door behind her. Brass nameplate, President. Voices murmured beyond it. Is Patricia in? I asked. She's in a meeting. With who? Board business. I photographed the postings. The flash popped. The admin flinched. You can't. Public posting, I said. Optics. Outside, heat slapped. Eddie stood in the rec room shade, eyes on the door I'd exited. You okay? I asked. He swallowed. They had a motion. What motion? To authorize utility enforcement measures for non-compliant accounts. He rubbed his jaw. Came up last week in executive session. Executive sessions are closed, I said. Someone forwarded me the agenda. He tapped his bag. They're serious, Ryan. Serious enough to break the law? He looked toward the fountain. Serious enough to think law is a mirror. A mirror? They only see themselves. He tightened the strap. Be careful. I drove home with the AC roaring and a pinprick ache behind my eyes. On the passenger seat, notices slid, glossy edges whispering. At the corner, the fountain flashed, sun caught in the cracked basin like water that wasn't there. As the garage door rattled shut, my phone buzzed with a calendar ping I didn't set. HOA special meeting, Wednesday 7 p.m., community rec room. Attached was a PDF. Agenda, compliance, and asset protection. I stood in the dim garage and read the subject line twice. My stomach went cold, and for the first time since we moved in, the house felt like someone else's. I exhaled. The HOA meeting started with the sound of a fan rattling against a warped vent. Folding chairs lined the rec room. The air smelled of carpet cleaner and citrus disinfectant. I sat in the back, sweat sticking to my shirt, watching Patricia straighten papers like a priest preparing scripture. Eddie slipped in a minute late. His camera bag bumped the doorframe with a dull thud. Patricia's eyes flicked toward him, then to me. Let's come to order, she said. Item 1. Enforcement protocol for delinquent accounts. She never used names, but I felt the room tilt toward me. The fountain outside gurgled once. Someone must have turned it on for show, and fell silent again. The maintenance tech from before whispered something. Patricia nodded. Effective immediately, she read. The board authorizes administrative suspension of non-essential utilities for non-compliant members. I stood. You mean water? Mr. Callan, she said without looking up. Members may observe, not participate. I'm not observing while you rewrite the law. Eddie shifted in his seat. I saw his hand twitch toward his phone, then drop to his lap. Patricia caught it. Recording is prohibited. Her tone sliced the air. He froze. A neighbor named Marlene raised a hand. Isn't water considered essential? Patricia's smile tightened. The association provides access, not guarantee. Municipal sources remain active. Except you control the valves, I said. Please refrain, she repeated. The fan clacked louder, metal tapping metal. I realized it was masking whispers, board members murmuring terms like precedent, delinquency pattern, example. Eddie's leg bounced. He looked trapped between two instincts. Stay invisible or act. He leaned my way slightly, eyes saying, not now. I clenched my fists under the table. Elise's face flashed in my mind, her pale skin, the monitors at night, our baby's tiny chest rising against the towel. Motion approved, Patricia declared. The gavel tapped plastic, soft but final. I left before the meeting closed. Outside, the desert dusk smelled of ozone and dust. Crickets pulsed in the dry hedges. Eddie followed, his sneakers scuffing pavement. You saw that, I said. He nodded. They planned it weeks ago. Then why didn't you say something? He swallowed hard. Because I live here too. That's not an answer. He rubbed the back of his neck. They can fine me, suspend landscaping privileges, block community Wi-Fi. They've done worse. Worse than cutting off water to a newborn? His silence was an answer. I stepped closer. You're an IT guy. You know how to keep records. I delete more than I keep. His eyes darted toward the rec room windows. They watch who opens attachments, who clicks links. Patricia checks. Metadata. I exhaled through my nose. Then maybe it's time they get watched instead. He flinched. Ryan, you don't know how far she'll go. She's got people on the board who owe her, contracts, favors. That's why no one talks. The fountain hissed, a pump coughing up air, spraying a thin mist that caught the streetlight before sputtering dry again. Eddie looked at it like it was bleeding. She keeps that broken on purpose, he said. Saves on water, blames the city. Symbolic control. I studied him. Sweat traced down his temple. His hand twitched toward his bag again, stopped halfway. You want to help? I asked. I want to sleep at night, he muttered, and not see my name on her clipboard. I took a step back. You already are. She just hasn't printed the page yet. A car door slammed down the block. We both jumped. Patricia's SUV rolled past, headlights sweeping across the fountain, catching us in the glare. She didn't stop, just turned the corner, brake lights fading into red dust. Eddie let out a breath. She'll know we talked. She already knew before we did, I said. We stood there until the crickets returned. The air hummed with sprinkler timers clicking on, distant and wasteful. I watched Eddie's face, drawn, guilty, something turning behind his eyes. Ryan, he said finally, voice low, if I show you something, you have to promise. No one knows it came from me. I didn't answer. He opened his bag, pulled a folded printout, edges smudged, an email header. Subject, enforcement, Callan property. Date, 2 weeks before the shutoff. He held it out halfway, then drew it back. Not yet, he said. Tomorrow. Tomorrow what? Meet me by the fountain after dark. No phones. He walked away before I could speak. The wind shifted, carrying the faint smell of chlorine and dust. The fountain gurgled once more, then went still, a hollow echo in the center of a neighborhood that only looked alive. The fountain hummed when I got there, a thin vibration under the stone lip like a throat clearing. Streetlights flickered, throwing yellow cones across empty driveways. Silverwood at night always looked too clean. No litter, no sound except sprinklers clicking like metronomes. Eddie was late. I traced the cracked basin with my boot. A moth spun against the light above the HOA bulletin board, thudding softly each time it hit plastic. 10 minutes passed before I saw him step from the dark between houses, hoodie drawn, camera bag across his chest. "You came," I said. He nodded, glancing over his shoulder. "She thinks she's invisible after 9 p.m. Board chat goes private, different email chain." He handed me the folded printout from the night before. The paper smelled faintly of toner. A screenshot, Patricia's name in the header, time-stamped. The subject, inspection authorization, Callan property. Below it, bullet points. Assess. Compliance. Document potential hazards. Enforce immediate corrections. "She sent maintenance," he said. "Tomorrow morning." "For what?" "To look busy," he said. "They'll take photos, maybe find a violation." I felt the pulse in my temple. Not on my property without consent. They'll claim visual perimeter check. The next morning, I left the garage open on purpose. If they came, I wanted light and witnesses. Elise watched from the window, baby on her shoulder. At 9 sharp, the HOA truck rolled up, white, logo peeling. 2 men in orange vests got out, phones raised like weapons. They didn't knock. One stepped into the flower bed, snapping photos of the meter box. The other tugged at the fence latch. "Can I help you?" I called. "Routine inspection," one said. "Authorized by who?" "HOA president." "Then she can come herself." They ignored me. One lifted the lid on the irrigation control, wires spilling like veins. "You touch that," I said, "and we've got a problem." "Sir, step back." Elise's voice came from the doorway. "Ryan." I looked up. The baby started crying again, thin and sudden. "Inside," I said. She hesitated. "Please don't." "Inside." She disappeared, door closing with a muffled click. The men exchanged a glance. I took a breath. "You're trespassing. Get off my property." "Documenting noncompliance," one muttered. "You're cutting wires." He shrugged. "Just verifying." I reached for my phone, but Eddie appeared at the corner, phone already out, camera rolling. His expression was pale, jaw set tight. "Gentlemen," he said quietly, "you're being recorded under Arizona Statute 1330-19. Tampering with private utilities is a misdemeanor." The men froze. One lowered his phone, the other stepped back from the fence. "Who are you?" the taller one asked. "Neighbor," Eddie said, "and witness." I felt the charge in the air shift. For the first time, the maintenance guys looked nervous. The shorter one muttered something and pulled a walkie from his belt. A woman's voice crackled through. "Continue the inspection. You have full authorization. Patricia." I walked up to the curb. "You're on speaker now, Patricia. Say it again." Static hissed, then her voice, brittle and controlled. "If residents cannot maintain compliance voluntarily, the board must ensure safety." "Safety?" I said. "You just authorized damage. You're obstructing policy execution, Mr. Callan." "Call the cops," I said. "Let's test whose policy counts." Eddie zoomed in, silent. The men hesitated, looked at each other, then climbed back into the truck. It rolled off slow, gravel whispering under the tires. Patricia's SUV appeared minutes later, stopping where they'd been. She didn't get out, just sat there, watching, phone to her ear. I walked to the curb. "Still recording," I said. Her window slid, down an inch. "You think exposure protects you?" "No," I said. "Truth does." "Truth," she repeated, voice a hiss, "is compliance." The window closed. The SUV backed away, taillights glowing red against the dry fountain. Eddie lowered his phone. His hands were shaking. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded once. "You just declared war." "Too late for declarations," I said. "They fired first." We stood in silence, the only sound the sprinkler lines sputtering back to life down the block. I looked at the fountain again, cracks catching the first glare of noon. For a second, water gathered in one, a thin reflection of the sky, then vanished, gone before it could run. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every pipe hiss sounded like the fountain mocking me. Elise dozed with the baby on her chest, both rising and falling in small, perfect rhythm. I stared at the ceiling fan spinning shadows across the plaster and thought of Patricia's voice. Truth is compliance. At 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Eddie." One message, "Check your email. Delete after. I slid from bed, careful not to wake them, and went to the garage. The air smelled of oil and detergent. My laptop screen threw blue light over the workbench. A single new email waited in my inbox under a name I didn't recognize. SW Records Admin. Subject: Silverwood Internal Enforcement Notes. No body, just an attachment. I hesitated, mouse hovering. Eddie was paranoid for a reason, but curiosity won. I opened it. A spreadsheet filled the screen, columns of addresses, violations, comments. Mine was highlighted in red. Under notes, subject likely to resist compliance. Recommend visual inspections and enforcement demonstration to discourage similar cases. Another line, brother is law enforcement. Limit direct engagement to avoid liability. Focus on procedural justification. Below that, timestamps, usernames. One was Patricia's personal email. Not HOA, not official. I scrolled, heart pounding. There were 30 households listed, 3 marked active enforcement. One note read, water cutoff effective 09 Bedero. Record for board archive. My cursor froze. They documented it, knowingly. The baby stirred upstairs. I hit print, then deleted the file and the message, but saved a copy on a flash drive. Habit from the Marines. Always keep evidence off network. The next morning smelled of burnt toast and formula. Elise sat at the table, pale but smiling faintly. You were up late. Work, I said, her eyes narrowed. Work, or Patricia work. I didn't answer. The doorbell rang, 2 sharp chimes. I looked through the peephole. HOA envelope, taped to the glass. No knock needed. Notice of violation, unauthorized structure, garage workbench visible from driveway. Fine, 150. Elise's lips parted. They're watching through the garage window now? I tore the envelope in half. Let them watch. Later, I texted, Mason, need to talk off record. He replied with a single question mark, then, tonight. When he arrived, he didn't come through the front door. He walked in from the backyard, hand resting near his badge. You said off record. What's going on? I plugged the flash drive into the laptop, opened the file. His jaw set as he read. Jesus, he whispered. They wrote this? And used personal emails, I said. They're creating patterns. They know they're skating close to criminal. He leaned closer. This isn't just civil harassment. It's unauthorized control of public utilities. They can't shut off water, period. Tell that to Patricia. He looked at me, then at the screen. If this leaks through you, they'll bury it as homeowner retaliation. You need to go through channels. Officially? Not yet. Let me verify first. He pulled his phone, snapped photos of the screen. Keep this flash drive offline. I'll trace the email domain. When he left, the air outside was thick with the smell of rain that never came. Eddie texted again. Did you open it? Yes. Then you know why I'm scared. We're not done, I wrote. He didn't reply. By afternoon, a white truck idled near the fountain. Same maintenance crew, windows up, engine running. I stood on the porch and filmed them with my phone. They didn't move. Elise came beside me, whispering, They want you to react. I am reacting, I said. Legally. I walked inside, sat at the table, and drafted an email to the County Consumer Affairs Office. Subject: Unauthorized utility tampering, Silverwood Estates, HOA. Attached, photographic evidence, incident description, spreadsheet excerpts, redacted. Before I hit send, I added one line, copy to local news, investigative desk. The whoosh of the email sending felt like pulling a trigger. Outside, thunder rolled over the mountains, slow and distant. The dry fountain stayed silent. Eddie called an hour later, voice shaking. Ryan, they know someone leaked the file. Patricia's calling an emergency meeting tonight. She's naming you. Good, I said. Now she'll have to talk where everyone can hear. For the first time, Eddie didn't sound afraid, just resigned. You're either insane or exactly what this place needed. Maybe both, I said. I looked out the window. The HOA truck was gone. The street looked ordinary again. Too ordinary, like peace pretending to be peace. Peace pretending to be peace didn't last 24 hours. By morning, the air had that heavy stillness before a storm, though the sky stayed cloudless. Elise woke dizzy, pulse racing. The baby's cries cut through the house like static. I called her doctor, adjusted pillows, held the thermometer. 101, I said. She closed her eyes. It's the stress. Just let me rest. But rest never held. The doorbell rang again, sharp, insistent. Another HOA envelope stuck in the seam. I tore it before I could think. Final notice, non-compliance escalation, board review pending. A line at the bottom, failure to cooperate may result in temporary suspension of community privileges and access controls. Access controls? I whispered. They wanted gate codes, IDs, everything. Eddie texted mid-morning. Patricia called the meeting for 3 p.m., closed session. I replied, let them talk, I'm recording. The baby's wail deepened, a raw human sound that hit somewhere behind my ribs. Elise tried to hum, voice cracking. I filled the sink, cupped water over the towel, washing soap from her small body. Water sloshed, echoing that day they cut it off. Ryan, Elise murmured, don't pick another fight. They already started it, she smiled weakly. You can't fix this like a wall. I can expose it. She looked at me with the kind of fear that isn't for herself. Promise me you'll stay calm. I kissed her forehead. Promise. When Mason arrived, his truck rumbled low. He wore civilian clothes, sleeves rolled. I traced Patricia's emails, he said. She's routing HOA business through a private domain registered in her name only. So she owns the board's voice, basically. Can that hold up? He nodded. Until someone complains formally. County's reviewing your report, but they'll need corroboration. Eddie. Mason's look said, be careful. If he testifies, it's real. Without him, it's hearsay. Thunder growled far off. Or maybe it was just a truck on the highway. The air smelled like iron and dust. At 2:45, I stood at the rec room door. The closed session sign hung crooked. Inside, muffled voices rose, Patricia's sharp vowels cutting through like glass. I pushed the door open. Meeting's private, she said instantly, head snapping toward me. So is my water bill. Gasps. Someone's pen clattered. I held up my phone. This is being recorded for the record. Illegal, she said. Public place. No expectation of privacy for policy discussions. Her jaw tightened. Security. No one moved. Eddie sat near the back, face pale. Our eyes met. He looked away. Patricia stood. You are hereby trespassing on association property. I live here, I said. I paid for this carpet under my feet. Then behave like it, she hissed. Explain this. I threw a printed page on the table. The spreadsheet header Mason had verified. Her eyes flicked over it. That document is stolen. It's evidence. Of what? Of premeditated utility tampering. The room buzzed, whispers, shifting chairs. Eddie's knee bounced under the table. Patricia pointed at me. You are creating a hostile environment. Hostile, I said, stepping closer. You cut my water while my wife bled in the next room. You sent men to destroy property. You hide behind bylaws written on your own server. Her voice cracked like a whip. Enough! The baby monitor in my pocket buzzed, Elise's faint voice calling my name. I froze. Go home, Eddie whispered. She needs you. I backed toward the door. Patricia's eyes glinted. Leaving already, Mr. Callan? I stopped. You'll answer for this. She smiled. You'll answer first. I walked out before the heat in my chest could explode into something I couldn't control. Outside, the fountain sputtered, water dribbling over dust. The sky finally broke, fat drops hitting pavement, hissing on hot stone. At home, Elise lay pale, damp hair sticking to her forehead. I wiped her face with a cool cloth. Did you do what you promised? She asked softly. I stayed calm, I said, though my hands still shook. Eddie texted again. She's calling another meeting tomorrow. Emergency enforcement. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. The thunder rolled closer, and somewhere under the sound, the faint hum of the fountain motor returned, steady, defiant. The hum from the fountain kept me awake. It wasn't loud, just constant, like the whisper of something refusing to die. Elise finally slept. I sat in the dark living room, blue light from the baby monitor flickering against the wall. The clock read 2:06 a.m. when a soft knock rattled the front door. I grabbed a flashlight, thumb hovering over the safety latch. Another knock, 3 quick taps. Eddie. He stood drenched, hoodie plastered to his shoulders, rain dripping from his hair. "You need to see something," he said. "Inside." He slipped through, glancing toward the stairs. "She's asleep?" "For now." He set his camera bag on the table, unzipped it. Inside, folders, USB drives, a small recorder. His hands trembled. "I told myself I'd delete all this," he said. "Then I watched what happened to you. Eddie, she's been using a shadow account. Every board message gets blind copied to her personal inbox. She's building a record, not for the HOA, for herself. Why? Liability shield. If it all burns, she claims she was documenting misuse by others." I leaned closer. "You can prove that?" He nodded. "I cloned the drive before she locked the shared folder. It's all there. Timestamps, drafts, internal votes." He slid a flash drive across the table. "But there's more." The rain drummed against the porch roof. Lightning flashed, revealing his face. Ashen, hollow-eyed. "She's targeting 5 families next," he said. "Elderly, widows, single parents. She's calling them high-risk accounts." My stomach turned. "To make examples," he nodded slowly. "You were the pilot case." I felt heat crawl up my neck. "And you watched." He swallowed hard. "I thought staying quiet was safer." "For who?" His silence said it all. Thunder cracked close, shaking the window glass. The baby stirred upstairs. Elise coughed once, then settled. "Eddie," I said, "why now?" He looked at the recorder. "Because she found out I sent you that spreadsheet. She traced the leak. I'm on the next meeting agenda. Disciplinary hearing. Code of conduct violation. She'll ruin you." He gave a small, bitter laugh. "Already done. My fence permit's under review. They froze my landscaping approval. I'm not sleeping anyway." I sat down across from him. "You want out?" He nodded. "I want it documented before she wipes everything." I powered on my laptop, inserted the drive. A folder popped open. HOAAs, Archives Jas Confidential. Dozens of PDFs, recordings, images. I clicked one. Patricia's voice filled the room. "Perception is authority. If we look firm, they comply. Fear is structure." Eddie flinched at his own recording. "She said that?" I whispered. "Every month." I scrolled further. Emails marked private board only. One message: "Ensure Callan issue remains unresolved through Q3 to justify enforcement precedent." Another: "Contact local law rep. Verify limits on county interference." Mason. She meant Mason. My pulse kicked. She tried to block my brother. Eddie rubbed his temples. She called the sheriff's office asking if his involvement was a conflict of interest. I stared at the screen. "She's terrified." "Of losing control," he said. We sat in the hum of the rain and the fountain beyond the walls. I felt something shift, not rage, but direction. "She's not untouchable anymore," I said. "We go public." "Public how?" "The news I copied on that email. They called today. They're interested. If we give them the files, she's finished." He hesitated. "You sure? They'll drag us through it too." "Maybe, but she used fear as structure. Let's see how she handles exposure." He ran a hand over his face. "You'll protect me?" "I'll try." He laughed weakly. "That's the first honest answer anyone's given me in months." I transferred the files, zipped them, and wrote one line to the reporter. "Verify authenticity before broadcast. This concerns criminal misuse of HOA authority." Lightning flickered again. The fountain outside sputtered, water spilling over stone like a throat clearing to speak. Eddie zipped his bag. "Once this hits, she'll come for both of us. She already has." He lingered at the door, rain hammering behind him. "Ryan, if something happens, that drive's backed up on the cloud. Folder labeled mirror." "Mirror?" He nodded. "Because she only ever sees herself." He stepped into the storm and vanished down the walk. I closed the door, listening to the fountain's hum blend with thunder. The house felt alive again, waiting. Tomorrow, Patricia would learn what fear felt like when it faced its own reflection. Morning came with the scent of wet dust and the buzz of sprinklers. The fountain still ran, coughing every few seconds, like it wasn't sure it wanted to live. I hadn't slept. The files Eddie left glowed on my laptop screen, proof sitting in plain sight. Mason showed up before sunrise, coffee in one hand, badge clipped at his belt, but covered by his jacket. "We're officially off the clock," he said. "Anything we do today stays between us." "Agreed," he sat, eyes scanning the open folders. "These are time-stamped, signed, even cross-referenced with bank transactions. Patricia reimbursed herself for board consulting from HOA dues. How much?" $5,000, I whistled. "Guess community service pays." Mason rubbed his jaw. "We need this airtight. County investigators won't move unless it's public or tied to a criminal act. Then we make it both." He looked up. "You mean media?" "Exactly." Eddie arrived 15 minutes later, hair damp from rain, expression hollow but determined. "I backed up everything to a mirror drive," he said quietly. "If she deletes, it stays." "You sure you want to do this?" Mason asked. Eddie's voice cracked. "If I don't, she wins twice." We spread everything across the table. Emails, screenshots, voice clips. The baby monitor buzzed softly in the background. Elise coughed upstairs. I heard her whisper our daughter's name, and something inside me hardened. "Strategy," Mason said. "We go step by step." I nodded. "Step 1, get the files verified. Step 2, control the narrative." "Meaning? If the news breaks first, Patricia can't spin it." Mason smirked. "You're thinking like an officer again." "Old habits." By noon, we had a plan. Eddie would deliver the drive to the reporter downtown. Mason would shadow him off duty in case Patricia's people followed. I'd stay home, keep Elise calm, and prepare statements. Before they left, I said, "She'll hit back. Be ready." Mason grinned. "She won't see it coming." After they drove off, I paced the kitchen. Light streamed through the blinds in thin white bars. The fountain's hum drifted in faint and steady. For the first time, it didn't sound sad. It sounded like resolve. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. "Mr. Callan," Patricia's voice, sharp and calm. "I'd appreciate a moment of civility before you continue your crusade." "What do you want?" "A conversation. We've had plenty." "Not like this," she said. "Meet me by the fountain in 30 minutes. No recording devices." I almost laughed. "You think I trust you near a water source?" "I think you care about your reputation," she said. "And your wife's." The line went dead. I stared at the phone until my knuckles whitened. Elise called softly from the hallway. "Ryan? Who was that?" "Nobody," I said too fast. She studied me, then the rain light glinting off the counter. "You're doing the right thing," she said. "Just remember why." I remember. Half an hour later, I stood at the fountain. The air was thick with humidity, the pavement still slick. Patricia was already there, hands folded over her clipboard. "Peace offering," she said, handing me an envelope. "What's this?" "Formal withdrawal of your fines. A clean record. If you agree to step back from your allegations." I opened it. Her signature gleamed at the bottom, proof she knew exactly how deep she'd gone. "You think I'd trade silence for forgiveness? I think you'd trade it for stability," she said. "You have a family, a sick wife. That baby deserves peace. You don't get to use her as leverage." Patricia's expression softened almost kindly. "I built this community to protect people like you from chaos." "Chaos doesn't knock on doors and shut off water, Patricia. You do." Her eyes glinted. "Then maybe you should have chosen a different neighborhood." She turned, heels clicking, walking toward her SUV. I called after her. "You should have chosen a different target." She didn't look back. When I got home, my phone buzzed. Eddie's number. Static, then his whisper. "We're in the building. Files verified. They're running it tonight." Mason's voice in the background. "Copy. We're heading back." For a moment, I just stood there, listening to the sound of wind pushing through the lemon trees, the faint hum of the fountain steadying like a heartbeat. Tonight, Silverwood's secrets would spill like water, finally breaking through cracked stone. By sunset, the air smelled like copper and ozone, storm residue, and nerves. The story went live at 6:03 p.m., sharp. Arizona HOA accused of utility tampering. The headline flashed across my phone in black and red. Beneath it, a still frame from Eddie's video. Patricia mid-sentence, her hand frozen over the valve key, the caption reading, "Water shut off during infant bath." I didn't breathe for a full 10 seconds. Then the phone started. First Mason. "It's out. County's calling an emergency review. You might get reporters." Then Eddie. "My inbox is exploding. She knows it was us." Then silence, the kind that fills a house before impact. Elise sat on the couch, baby against her shoulder. The news anchor's voice spilled from the TV. The Silverwood Estates Homeowners Association faces allegations of unlawful interference with residential utilities. She looked at me, eyes wide. "You did it." "We did it," I said. But triumph tasted metallic, like blood. Outside, car lights glowed against the fountain's wet stone. A white SUV idled, Patricia's. The doorbell rang. 3 hard presses. I opened it halfway. Patricia stood in the porch light, makeup cracked, clipboard gone. "Congratulations," she said softly. "You've destroyed the neighborhood. Truth doesn't destroy anything worth keeping. You don't understand what you started." Then, "Explain." "Lawyers," she said. "Countersuits. Half the residents are terrified of fines dropping property value. You've turned them against me, and they'll turn on you next." Behind her, Eddie's porch light flicked on. He stood outside, phone in hand, filming again. Patricia noticed. "You really think a video saves you?" "I think it reminds you," I said. "That light exposes everything." She took 1 step closer, rain dripping from her hair. "You have a sick wife and a baby. I could have protected you." "From who?" She hesitated, and for a moment I saw something. Fear, maybe grief. Then it hardened. "From the system. The board isn't the villain, Mr. Callan. You're naive if you think the county cares about you." "I don't need them to care," I said, "just to look." She turned, walking back to her SUV. "They'll bury this," she said over her shoulder. "And when they do, you'll still live here, surrounded by everyone you turned against." Her engine roared, taillights vanishing down the street. Inside, the phone buzzed again. "Mason. County wants statements. They're sending someone tonight. Don't leave." At 8:40, a sedan pulled up, county seal on the door. A woman stepped out, hair tied back, clipboard tucked under her arm. "Investigator Hale," she said, flashing ID. "Mr. Callan?" "That's me." "I'm reviewing the utility tampering report. Mind if I verify your shut-off valve?" "Be my guest." We walked to the curb. The fountain gurgled faintly, that same ghostly heartbeat. She crouched beside the meter, shining her flashlight. "Lock broken," she said. "See this scratch? Someone used a non-utility key." "That's them," I said. She jotted notes. "Video evidence?" "Plenty." She stood, met my eyes. "This is serious. Utility control is city jurisdiction, not HOA. They crossed a boundary." "I tried telling them that." She smiled faintly. "Now, they'll hear it from us." When she left, headlights faded into dark. I leaned against the mailbox, rainwater slicking my palms. Across the street, Eddie watched from his porch, laptop glow painting his face pale. He lifted his hand in a small salute. Mason texted again. "Good job. They'll interview tomorrow. Keep everything backed up." I stepped inside. Elise had the TV muted now, watching the crawl of comments beneath the headline. "HOA's gone too far." "Good for that family. They always pick on the quiet ones." She smiled weakly. "Maybe people will stop pretending everything's perfect." I sat beside her, baby between us, the hum of the house steady for once. "Patricia's not done," I said. "No," she whispered, "but neither are we." Outside thunder rolled again, but softer now, like applause fading into calm. The fountain kept running, water spilling through its cracks in thin silver lines, catching the porch light, proof that something broken could still keep flowing. Tomorrow, the county would walk through the same streets Patricia once ruled, and when they did, I'd be waiting with the truth, every file, every voice, every drop of water they tried to control. By the next evening, the neighborhood pulsed like a live wire. Cars lined both sides of the cul-de-sac, headlights casting nervous arcs over the cracked fountain. The HOA had called an emergency community assembly. Translation: damage control. I could feel Patricia's hand in the neatness. Emails sent at dawn, subject line, transparency and restoration. Everyone was expected to attend. Everyone wanted to watch. Elise insisted on coming. They need to see who they hurt, she said, pale but steady. Mason drove us in his truck, Eddie following behind in his dented sedan, laptop bag on the passenger seat. Inside the rec room, the air reeked of perfume and panic. Rows of folding chairs filled the space, and for once, Patricia didn't sit at the head table. She stood in front of it, microphone in hand, her posture ironed straight. "Thank you for joining us," she began, voice thin over feedback. "There have been misunderstandings regarding recent enforcement actions. I want to assure everyone, our board has always acted in good faith." Murmurs rippled. Someone muttered, "Then why the county cars?" I saw two investigators near the back, notebooks open. Mason nodded toward them. "They're taking everything down," he whispered. Patricia continued. "The media's portrayal is incomplete. Our decisions were guided by our bylaws, rules this community agreed to uphold." She looked directly at me. "Mr. Callan, would you like to address your neighbors?" Every eye turned. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. I rose slowly, baby monitor clipped to my belt, a faint static hum breaking the silence. "I would," I said. I walked to the front, stopped beside her. The mic felt slick in my hand. "When I bought this house," I began, "I thought rules were meant to protect people, not punish them." Someone shouted, "He's right!" Another followed. "You shut off their water." Patricia raised a hand. "Please let him finish." I met her eyes. "You cut utilities to a family with a newborn. You called it policy enforcement. I call it cruelty with paperwork." Gasps, a few claps. Patricia's lips tightened. "That's defamatory." "Not if it's true." Eddie stood near the back, filming. Mason leaned on the wall, arms crossed. I turned toward the crowd. "We have proof, emails, payments, and recordings showing misuse of HOA funds and illegal tampering. It's already verified by the county." Patricia snatched the mic from my hand. "Those files were stolen." Eddie's voice cut through the noise. "Public documents, ma'am, uploaded to the association server. I just pressed record." The room erupted, half shouting, half applauding. Patricia slammed the mic back on the table, feedback screaming. "You're all being manipulated," she shouted. "This man wants chaos." "No," I said. "I want accountability." The county investigator stepped forward. "Mrs. Harrow, please stop speaking. You're under active review for potential criminal conduct." The room went silent, air thick enough to taste. Patricia blinked, the fight draining from her posture. "You can't—" "We can," the investigator said, showing her badge. "Please step outside." Two officers appeared in the doorway. One I recognized from Mason's precinct. Patricia turned toward me. For the first time, she looked small. "You think you've won," she said quietly, "but power always finds a new face." "Then, maybe next time," I said, "it'll know what water feels like when it stops." They let her out. Flashbulbs popped through the windows, reporters waiting on the lawn. The fountain's hum echoed faintly through the open doors, steady and alive. When the crowd finally broke, neighbors approached one by one, quiet apologies, handshakes, murmured thanks. A man I barely knew said, "Didn't think anyone could stand up to her." "Neither did I admitted. Eddie joined me, holding up his camera. "Streams live, 50,000 views and counting." I laughed once, low and tired. "Guess the fountain finally got an audience." He grinned. "Yeah, and it's running." Outside, the air smelled of wet stone and relief. Elise leaned against Mason's arm, smiling faintly as the baby cooed in her carrier. "Ready to go home?" I asked. She nodded. "Home finally feels like ours again." I looked back once as they cuffed Patricia near the fountain, the water glinting silver beneath flashing lights. For the first time, it sounded like freedom. For the first time, it sounded like freedom. But freedom came with paperwork. The next morning, the news vans were still parked along the cul-de-sac, cords snaking across wet asphalt. The fountain ran non-stop, its pump finally fixed by order of the county. The sound was strange, too smooth, too calm after so much noise. Mason's cruiser idled near the curb. He leaned on the hood, coffee steaming in the chill. "They processed her overnight," he said. "Tampering, misuse of funds, obstruction, she's out on bail." "Of course she is," I said. He nodded. "But the board's collapsing. Half resigned before dawn. County's freezing their accounts." Eddie joined us, phone buzzing nonstop. I've got reporters asking for statements. Some want interviews, one wants a documentary. Tell them no, I said. We're not content. He smiled faintly. Too late. We're the headline. Across the street, 2 residents replaced Patricia's sign. President scraped off the bronze plate, leaving a scar of lighter metal beneath. The HOA office door hung open, papers scattered on the desk like leaves after a storm. Elise came out. Baby. Bundled against her chest. Her cheeks looked less pale, eyes clearer. She's trending, she said quietly. Horivolt. I half laughed. We didn't revolt. We just refused to drown. Inside, the house felt different, lighter, as if the walls had exhaled. The stack of notices on the counter no longer looked like threats, just reminders of what we'd survived. Mason followed me in, setting his hat on the table. They'll need formal testimony, he said. You, Eddie, maybe Elise. You ready for that? As ready as anyone who's been used as an example, I said. He gave a tired grin. You made a better one than she did. Later that afternoon, Investigator Hale returned. Clipboard in hand, she stood under the shade of the lemon tree. Preliminary findings confirm what we expected, she said. Utility tampering, fund misappropriation, and record falsification. Will she serve time? I asked. Too early to say. She's claiming the board acted collectively, but the emails paint a different picture. Hale paused. You should know. You started something bigger than Silverwood. What do you mean? Other neighborhoods are coming forward. Same bylaws, same tactics. You gave them a precedent. I looked toward the fountain. Then let them use it. When she left, I sat on the porch steps. Eddie joined me, camera bag at his feet. They'll replace her, you know, he said. New board, new president. Someone always wants the clipboard. Maybe, I said. But at least now they'll think twice before using it as a weapon. He laughed quietly. Funny thing, I moved here for quiet. Guess you got a different education. The wind shifted, carrying the sound of the fountain through the cul-de-sac. Kids played again, bikes rattling over puddles. Someone had set up folding chairs by the mailboxes, neighbors actually talking instead of watching from blinds. Elise joined us, baby sleeping against her shoulder. She looked at Eddie. You did the right thing, she said. He nodded, voice low. Eventually. Mason called from the sidewalk. Press wants a statement. They're at the gate. Tell them we're done talking, I said. Let the record speak. But when I saw the cameras, I realized silence wouldn't help. People needed to hear what happened, not for fame, but warning. So I stood by the fountain, reporters forming a half circle. The microphones looked like black flowers pointing toward me. I'm not a hero, I began. I'm just a homeowner who got tired of fear disguised as order. If anyone out there's living under the same kind of control, know this. Rules don't exist to strip you of dignity. They exist to protect it. The reporters scribbled. One asked, What will you do now? I looked at Elise, then at the baby's sleeping face. We'll live, and maybe water our lawn without permission. They laughed softly. Cameras. Clicked. As the crowd thinned, I heard the fountain again. Steady, clean, alive. For the first time, it wasn't a symbol of control. It was proof that something broken could be repaired. Mason clapped my shoulder. It's almost over, he said. Not over, I answered, watching the water rise and fall. Just right this time. Just right this time. That's what I kept thinking as the weeks rolled forward and the neighborhood learned to breathe again. The fountain stayed running, steady as a heartbeat. Kids threw pennies into it, testing whether wishes still worked. The hum that once sounded like control now felt like rhythm, like the place itself, remembering what it was supposed to be. I went back to work, hammer in hand, sawdust in my hair, real things again. Elise laughed more, color returning to her cheeks. The baby started sleeping through the night. The house smelled like lemon oil and fresh coffee instead of paper and fear. Eddie stopped by one afternoon carrying his camera, not to film, just to talk. He stood at the edge of the lawn, eyes tracing the patch spots where the maintenance crew had torn things up months earlier. Quiet feels weird now, he said. Give it time, I told him. He smiled. You know they're holding board elections next month. No one's running yet. I looked up from fixing the mailbox. You should, he blinked. Me? You already did the hardest part. You told the truth. He rubbed the back of his neck. I'm not leadership material. Neither was I said. But that didn't stop the fight. He nodded, thoughtful. Maybe I'll think about it. Before leaving, he knelt by the fountain, dropped a coin in. The water caught sunlight, flashing silver across his face. "For balance," he said. When he left, the street was quiet again, but it wasn't empty. Neighbors waved now. Someone set out lemonade stands on Saturdays. The same people who once watched through curtains now stopped to ask how Elise was feeling, how the baby was growing. I didn't trust it completely, not yet. But maybe that's what healing looks like, suspicion fading one small gesture at a time. A letter arrived from the county 2 weeks later. The heading read, "Case Closure Summary." Patricia's charges stood. 3 counts of unlawful tampering, 1 of fund misuse, 1 of obstruction. Sentence, community service and restitution. Probation for 2 years. I read it twice. Justice rarely feels dramatic. It's paperwork and signatures, and sometimes that's enough. That evening, Mason came over for dinner. We sat outside while Elise fed the baby. The sun bled orange across the stucco, turning every shadow soft. "She got light sentencing," I said. He shrugged. "Still a record. She'll never sit on another board again. She'll find something else to control." "Maybe," he said, "but you took away her audience." We watched the baby wave her arms toward the fountain, fascinated by the shimmer. The sound filled the space between us, steady, forgiving. Later, after they went inside, I stayed on the porch. The air was cool, desert clean after rain. I thought about that first morning, the hiss of the valve, the shock of silence, Patricia's voice saying policy enforcement. All of it felt distant now, like a film I'd lived through instead of a memory. I walked to the fountain, leaned on the cool stone. Beneath the surface, coins glimmered like tiny medals, proof of all the wishes people were willing to make again. The reflection of the porch light rippled over my hands. Freedom doesn't roar, it hums. It's the sound of water running when it should, of your child laughing in the next room, of no one telling you what peace should cost. I pulled out my phone, recorded a short clip. The fountain at night, water catching the light, no commentary, just that sound. I uploaded it to the same channel Eddie used for the first video, titled it, "After the Noise." The caption read, "If you've ever fought for something simple, like water, like dignity, remember that it's worth it." Before I hit post, I added one line, "What would you stand up for if silence cost you everything? Stay with us and subscribe, because peace is only real when it's shared." The video went live. Within minutes, hearts floated across the screen. Not outrage this time, just people listening. Inside, Elise called my name. The baby laughed. The house was full again. I turned off the porch light, letting the fountain glow on its own, steady as breath, steady as truth.